This is a lesson now on adaptive project management. So what is adaptive project management? It's a structured and systematic process to continually improve decisions and practices by learning from the outcomes of previous actions. What it means in project management is that when we look at the previous lessons, that we do have a phase when we plan, we do the work, we check our work, and we find that we have opportunities to make changes based on what we learn. We make those changes and we plan again. This is the continuous process of continuous improvement that is part at the core of adaptive project management. Those cycles happen during the lifetime of the project. During implementation, from the beginning to the end, we're going to do the work, we're going to check our work, we're going to make adaptations to the plan, we plan again, and we do it. And these cycles will happen through the life cycle of the project. Here are some of the characteristics that differentiate between traditional project management and adaptive project management. And it's important to have an understanding between the two. Most of the time, traditional project management is the understanding that we have, what we read sometimes in books, or what we understand is traditional project management. But adaptive project management is different. It tries to combine certain conditions that are more flexible to the conditions that happen in development projects. For example, the project goal in traditional will be getting the job done within those basic requirements of time, budget, and donor requirements. In adaptive, the goal is more about getting the results while meeting multiple stakeholder criteria. The plan in traditional is the collection of activities that are executed as planned to meet the project constraints. In adaptive is a planning process. And there is a difference. In traditional will be let's develop a plan. While in adaptive it's more about a planning process to achieve the goals and development results. In planning, we do once at the project initiation. So we work, we develop the plan, and we use the plan to execute the project. In adaptive, it's something that we start at the beginning of the project, but we're constantly adapting the plan as needed. The management approach in traditional is usually rigid, it's focused on the initial plan, while in adaptive it's more flexible, it's changing and it's adapted to conditions and the context that we find in the project. Additional characteristics. The type of work that we have in traditional is usually a type of work that it will be predictable, it's certain, linear, and simple. But in adaptive, the type of work it's usually unpredictable. There's a lot of uncertainty, non-linear, and complex. The effect of the environment in traditional will usually be minimal. In adaptive, it will affect the project throughout its execution. The type of control in traditional will be more about identifying deviations and trying to put things back on track, meaning whatever changes or modifications, delays that we see, we try to follow what is on the plan. But in an adaptive, we identify the changes in the environment and adjust our plans accordingly. That means that whatever plans we begin at the beginning of the project, they are opportunities for us to make changes and modify those plans, adapt those plans to what is happening in the field. Another characteristic of traditional is that it deals and looks at all the projects are the same. It will be the example of building a house. Once you build this one house, the second and the third will be all the same. So whatever process, whatever plans you have to build a house will be basically the same. But in adaptive, the idea is that all projects are different. You might have a water and sanitation project or an education project in one country, and trying to use the plans or trying to manage another project in another part of the country or in another region will be different because the context and the conditions are different. The idea is that projects do not exist in isolation. They are influenced by a constantly changing environment. And we look at internal and external environment. And the environment is made of conditions that the project manager sometimes has little or no influence to change. The first environment is internal. That is the organization. It's the culture, the politics, the policies or procedures that will have an influence on the project. And the second environment is the external environment. That is the location where the project is working. It will be the country, it will be the community, or even the region. And those are the social, economical, political conditions that happen in that external environment that will also have an impact on the project. So those two elements are changing. Mostly on the external environment, the changes are going to be the ones that are going to have a larger impact on the project. And the idea behind it is that we need to have a flexible approach to have and manage a project that can meet those challenges. Here's an example that will help you have a better understanding of what this means. We want to make a trip from point A to point B, and we have a plan that will help us manage the time and the cost to go from point A to point B. And mostly we know that we're going to go through this road. There are going to be some signs that give us an idea of what is happening, but most of the time when we develop our plan, we're going to have a good idea of the time and the cost to complete this trip. And that usually what happens in traditional project management. We develop the plan, we know specifically how much time, how much money we need, and what's going to happen during that trip. But what we actually find in development project is completely different. We still have a beginning and we still have an end. We have an idea of a plan, but when we start implementing our plan and we go to the field, we find things are very different. We're going to find things that are going to be changing. In our trip to go from where point B, we find signs that force us to take a new road. And we continue, we see new signs that we didn't see before. We never planned for those signs that force us to stop, to reduce, and suddenly we find that the original time and cost we're not going to be able to meet them if we continue that. So the idea is that we start adapting our plan. We know that we plan to take less time here, more resources here, and because there are so many changes, we need to constantly be adapting our plan to meet those changes so that eventually we're able to meet our final destination. And that's the reality in development projects, is that we cannot just build our plan and expect that everything will go according to what we plan. The conditions in the field are always changing. There are going to be new challenges, new risks, and the assumptions will change, the support from stakeholders will change, and the plan we had at the beginning will no longer work. Because if we continue working, we're not going to be able to achieve our goal. We're going to get stuck in the middle without any gasoline, without any more money to continue our work, and that's not the idea. The idea is that we are planning, but we're constantly adapting our plan to those conditions. So the idea is that we maintain our focus on the goal and we are constantly adapting. We bring those lessons, what we learn about what is happening. We try to adapt our plans to the new conditions and the new context in the project. The idea again is that we are able and have more control on those conditions because we're able to learn from it. And by doing that, we have a better understanding of what we need to do in order to achieve our goal. And that's ideally the concept behind adaptive project management, that we don't follow necessarily a strict set of actions or a strict close plan that is sometimes written in stone, but it is that we find opportunities to improve it. We find opportunities to change it, not only because the conditions are demanding it, but also internally because we learn from it. And every conditions that we had at the beginning and ideas we have at the beginning when we were starting the project and developing the plans, by the time we implement, we learn. And the idea is that we need to bring that into the plans. So the idea behind adaptive project management is the concept of we are constantly planning, we're constantly improving, we're constantly changing the actions we have in order to achieve our goal within those constraints.